The sky above Colony Haven burned red, not from sunset, from the engines of 10,000 drop pods falling like judgment from heaven. Commander Jin Seok-ho stood alone on the elevated platform at the colony's northern gate, watching the apocalypse descend. Behind him, the evacuation sirens had finally gone silent. Good. That meant Administrator Chen had successfully moved the 3,000 civilians into the deep mining tunnels. They had maybe 6 hours of oxygen down there. Maybe. Seok-ho checked his rifle for the 15th time. Fully charged. He had 12 extra power cells on his belt, 4 plasma grenades, 1 combat knife that his grandfather had carried through 3 wars. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it didn't matter. The first drop pod crashed into the ground 200 meters away. Then another, then 50 more. The earth screamed with each impact, and Seok-ho felt the vibrations in his bones. The Xeraxian soldiers emerged like nightmares given flesh, 8 feet tall, 6 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that gleamed like black diamond. They carried plasma rifles that could cut through steel like paper. Seok-ho had studied them. The Xeraxian Imperium had conquered 847 worlds across 5 galaxies. They had never lost a battle, not once in 12,000 years. They moved with the confidence of gods. More pods fell, hundreds, thousands. The plain before the colony filled with alien warriors until they stretched from horizon to horizon, an ocean of black armor and glowing eyes. And then, the sky split open. A ship descended from the clouds. Not a warship, something else. Something beautiful and terrible. It was made of crystal and light, and it moved with impossible grace. The Imperial flagship. She was here, Empress Valeth the Conqueror, the Blade of Stars, the woman who had personally executed 14 planetary governors who dared resist her rule. The ship landed, and the Xeraxian army parted like water before a stone. A ramp extended, and she walked down. Seok-ho's breath caught in his throat. She was not what he expected. Tall, yes, nearly 7 feet. But where her soldiers were brutal and armored, she was elegant. Her skin was pale silver, and her eyes burned with cold violet fire. A crown of living light floated above her head. She walked through her army of 50,000 soldiers, and they bowed as she passed. Her gaze swept across the colony, the buildings, the defensive walls, the automated turrets that Seok-ho knew wouldn't last 30 seconds against her forces. And then her eyes found him, one human, standing alone on a platform, rifle raised, facing her entire army. She stopped. For a long moment, nothing moved. The wind died. The soldiers went still. Even the flames seemed to freeze in the air. Then Empress Valeth did something that made her generals exchange confused glances. She laughed. "Is this a joke?" Her voice carried across the field like thunder, translated by the device at her throat. "One defender? For an entire colony?" Seok-ho's voice was steady. "The others are busy." Another laugh, but this time there was something else in it. Curiosity, perhaps. "Busy doing what, little human?" "Surviving." The Empress tilted her head. "You understand that you cannot win. You understand that you will die here." "Yes. And yet you stand." "Yes." She stepped forward. Her guards moved to follow, but she raised one hand, and they froze. She walked alone across the battlefield until she stood at the base of his platform, looking up at him. Up close, she was even more terrifying. Power radiated from her like heat from a star. Seok-ho could feel it pressing against his skin. "What is your name, human?" "Commander Jin Seok-ho, Republic Marines, retired." "Retired?" She tasted the word. "And yet here you are, fighting. Someone has to. Why?" The question hung in the air. Behind her, 50,000 soldiers waited. Above them, 73 warships hung in the sky like patient predators. Seok-ho had no chance, no hope, no possibility of victory. He smiled. "Because that's what humans do, Your Majesty. We fight. Even when we can't win. Even when it's hopeless. Especially when it's hopeless." Empress Valeth studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in her violet eyes. something that looked almost like interest. I have conquered 847 worlds, she said softly. I have faced armies of millions. I have watched species beg and plead and offer everything they have for mercy. She paused. I have never seen anyone smile at their own death. Then you've never met a human before? She smiled. It was not a kind smile. No, she said. I haven't. She turned and walked back toward her army. When she reached her generals, she stopped and spoke without looking back. Kill him. 5,000 soldiers raised their weapons. Shok-Ho took a deep breath. He thought of his daughter, safe in the bunkers below. He thought of his wife, who had died 3 years ago on a world just like this one. He thought of every human who had ever stood against impossible odds and refused to kneel. Then he raised his rifle, and he fought. The first plasma bolt burned past his head. The second took a chunk out of his shoulder. But Commander Jin Shok-Ho didn't fall. He fired back, and he didn't stop firing. And in her crystal ship, watching through 100 cameras, Empress Valeth leaned forward on her throne. Because the human was still standing, still fighting, still smiling. Impossible, she thought. What are these creatures? The battlefield had become a graveyard. Commander Jin Shok-Ho stood in the center of it, breathing hard. His left arm hung useless at his side. A plasma bolt had burned through the muscle. Blood ran down his face from a gash on his forehead. His armor was cracked in a dozen places. Around him lay the bodies of Zyraxian soldiers, 300 of them, elite warriors who had conquered worlds, killed by one injured human with a rifle and a refusal to die. His rifle's charge was at 7%. The remaining Zyraxian forces had formed a circle around him, weapons raised, but they weren't firing. They were waiting for her. Empress Valeth walked through the circle of her soldiers. Her face was impossible to read, but her eyes were burning with something Shok-Ho couldn't identify. Stop! The command echoed across the battlefield. Every soldier froze. Valeth approached him slowly, stepping over the bodies of her fallen warriors. She stopped 3 meters away and studied him like a scientist studying a new species. How? She asked. Shok-Ho spat blood. How what? How are you still alive? Her voice was genuinely curious. I have reviewed your species' biology. You are fragile, soft. Your bones break easily. Your organs are vulnerable. You cannot regenerate. You cannot adapt. She gestured at the bodies around him. And yet you killed 300 of my elite guard. 307. Shok-Ho coughed. I counted. Something flickered across her face. It might have been amusement. My generals tell me this is impossible, she said. They say their calculations show you should have died in the first exchange of fire. The probability of your survival was 0.03%. Guess I'm lucky. No, she shook her head slowly. Luck does not explain this. Luck does not explain how you move faster than our targeting systems could track. Luck does not explain how you predicted our soldiers' movements before they made them. Luck does not explain... She paused, searching for the right word. This. She was right, of course. It wasn't luck. It was 10 years of training, 10 years of combat, 10 years of learning to fight enemies, bigger, stronger, and faster than him. Humans had always been the underdogs of the galaxy. They had learned to compensate. But Shok-Ho didn't tell her that. Instead, he smiled. Maybe your soldiers aren't as elite as you think. The temperature around them dropped. Literally dropped. Frost formed on the ground near Valeth's feet. Her power was leaking out, a response to her anger. You dare! I dare! Shok-Ho interrupted. Because I have nothing left to lose. Because you're going to kill me anyway. Because I want you to remember this moment. Empress. I want you to remember the day one human made you stop your entire army just to ask him a question. Silence. Valeth stared at him. Around them, her soldiers shifted nervously. No one spoke to the Empress like that. No one. And then she laughed. It wasn't the mocking laugh from before. This was something else. Genuine. Surprised. Almost delighted. You are either the bravest being I have ever met, she said, or the most foolish. Probably both. She circled him slowly. her silver robes trailing through the blood and dust. "I have a question for you, Commander Jin Seok-ho. Answer honestly, and I may give you a gift." "What kind of gift?" "A quick death." "Generous." Seok-ho's voice was dry. "Ask your question." She stopped in front of him, her violet eyes meeting his. "Why do you fight?" "I told you. Because that's what humans do." "No." She shook her head. "That is what you tell yourself. That is the story you have constructed to give meaning to your actions. I want the truth, the real reason." Seok-ho was quiet for a long moment. In the distance, he could hear more drop pods landing, reinforcements, as if the Zyraxians needed them. 3 years ago, he said finally, I was stationed on Colony Meridian. Beautiful place. Green forests, blue oceans, 10,000 civilians. He paused. The Varaxian collective attacked. We were outnumbered 30-1. Command ordered a retreat. I was supposed to evacuate the civilians. Valeth listened in silence. "I made a choice," Seok-ho continued. "I ordered my squad to take the civilians and run, and I stayed behind to cover their escape." His voice cracked slightly. "I held the line for 6 hours, killed maybe 100 Varaxians, and when reinforcements finally arrived, they found me in a pile of bodies, barely alive. A heroic story. No." Seok-ho's eyes were dark. "A failure, because while I was holding the line, a second Varaxian force flanked the evacuation route. They caught the transports before they reached orbit." He took a shaky breath. "My wife was on one of those transports. My daughter. My daughter was supposed to be with her, but she had hidden in the colony bunker without telling anyone. She was the only survivor." Valeth was very still. "I spent 3 years trying to die," Seok-ho said. "Took every dangerous mission, volunteered for every suicide operation, but I kept surviving, kept living, no matter how hard I tried to find an ending." He looked up at her. "And then the Republic discharged me, told me I was too reckless, too unstable. So I came here, to the edge of nowhere, to wait for death to finally catch up with me." He smiled, and there was something broken in it. "And now here you are." Empress Valeth was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer. "Your daughter, she is in the tunnels below?" Seok-ho's blood ran cold. His rifle came up, but Valeth raised one hand and an invisible force froze him in place. She was powerful, more powerful than he had imagined. "I am not threatening her," Valeth said. "I am asking." "Yes, and that is why you fight. Not for glory, not for honor, not even for survival." She tilted her head. "You fight so that she might live." Seok-ho said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Valeth was quiet for a long time. Around them, her army waited in perfect stillness. The wind carried the smell of blood and ozone. Finally she spoke. "General Kreth." A massive Zyraxian stepped forward. "Yes, Empress." "Pull back the siege forces from the eastern tunnels." Confusion rippled through the ranks. Even Kreth seemed stunned. "Empress?" "You heard me. Pull them back and send a message to the colony bunkers. Tell them—" She paused, looking at Seok-ho. "Tell them they have 6 hours to evacuate." Seok-ho's heart stopped. "What?" "Do not misunderstand me, human." Valeth's voice was cold again. "I am not showing mercy. Mercy is weakness. I am showing recognition." "Recognition of what?" She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the patterns of light swirling in her violet eyes. "In 12,000 years, I have never seen a being fight as you fight, without hope, without possibility of victory, purely for the sake of another." She paused. "I want to understand this. I want to study it, and I cannot study it if you are dead. So you're letting us go?" "I am giving you 6 hours." Her voice hardened. "After that, I will resume my conquest. Your people will flee, and I will take this world. But for 6 hours, you have won." Seok-ho stared at her. His mind couldn't process what was happening. "This is a trick." "It is not." "Then why? Why would you—" "Because you have given me something valuable, Commander." She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who had found something interesting to hunt. "You have given me curiosity." She turned and walked back toward her army. Halfway there, she stopped and spoke without turning around. I will remember you, Jin Xiaoko, and one day I will find you again. And when I do, she glanced back over her shoulder. I expect you to still be fighting. Then she was gone. Her army withdrew like a tide pulling back from the shore. The warships in the sky began to move, pulling away from the colony. Sok Ho stood alone on the battlefield, surrounded by bodies bleeding from a dozen wounds, watching an empire retreat. His hands were shaking. His comm crackled. Administrator Chen's voice came through, frantic. Commander, what's happening? The aliens they're leaving? Did we win? Xiao Ho looked at the sky, at the retreating fleet, at the crystal ship carrying the Empress away. He thought about her words. I will find you again. No, he said quietly. We didn't win. He took a shaky breath. We survived. As the last Xeraxian ship vanished into the stars, Xiao Ho collapsed to his knees. He had done the impossible. He had bought his people time. But even as the colonists emerged from the bunkers, even as his daughter ran toward him crying, one thought echoed in his mind. She said she would find him again, and Empress Valeth had never broken a promise. The bar on Station Omega 9 was the kind of place where people went to disappear. It floated in the dead space between three star systems, officially belonging to no government, practically belonging to whoever had the most guns on any given day. Pirates, smugglers, refugees, and ghosts all drank at the same counter and minded their own business. Jin Xiao Ho fit right in. He called himself Park now, just Park. He worked as a cargo handler on the station, moving boxes from ship to ship, earning just enough to pay for his small room and his daughter's education on a safe colony 3 systems away. He had grown a beard, let his hair go gray, walked with a deliberate limp he didn't actually have. Everything about him was designed to be forgettable. It had worked. For 2 years, no one had recognized him. No one had connected the quiet cargo handler with the man who had single-handedly held off the Xeraxian Imperium. Until tonight. The message appeared on his personal comm at exactly midnight. No sender identification. No traceable origin. Just 6 words in elegant script. I found you. Start running. V. Seok Ho stared at the message for a long moment. Then he calmly finished his drink, paid his tab, and walked out of the bar. He had 47 minutes before the first assassin found him. The assassin was Krellian, a species known for their speed and their poison-tipped claws. He came through Seok Ho's window at 12:43 a.m., moving fast enough to blur. He died with Seok Ho's knife in his throat, still wondering how the human had known he was coming. Seok Ho wiped the blade clean and checked the assassin's pockets. A data chip. He plugged it into his comm. A face appeared. Empress Valeth, looking exactly as she had 2 years ago. Beautiful, terrifying, amused. Hello, Commander. If you're watching this, you've killed my first hunter. Congratulations. The next one will be harder. Xiao Ho said nothing. He just watched. I told you I would find you again. I always keep my promises. She smiled. But I don't want to simply capture you. That would be boring. No, I want to play a game. The image shifted to show a star map. 10 locations were marked with red dots. I have placed 10 hunters on your trail. Each one is more dangerous than the last. If you can survive all 10, I will grant you and your daughter permanent sanctuary in neutral space. My word as Empress. She leaned closer to the camera. But if any of them catch you, you belong to me. And I have so many questions I want to ask you, Commander. So many experiments I want to run. Her eyes gleamed. I want to understand what makes humans so fascinating. The image faded. A timer appeared. Hunter 2 deployed. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Seok Ho closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter, safe on her colony, believing her father was a simple cargo worker. He thought about running, hiding, spending the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Then he opened his eyes and they were hard. No more running. Hunter 2 was a pair. Tarvox twins, a species that shared a telepathic bond. They worked in perfect coordination, one flushing the prey, the other waiting for the kill. Sok-ho killed them both in a cargo bay on Deck 7. He used their telepathic connection against them, hurt one badly enough, and the other felt it. When the first twin screamed in pain from a plasma burn, the second twin flinched at exactly the wrong moment. The knife found his heart 3 seconds later. Hunter 3 deployed. Estimated arrival. 4 hours. Hunter 3 was a machine, an AI-controlled combat drone from a civilization that had been dead for 10,000 years. It didn't feel pain. It didn't feel fear. It processed and adapted and learned. Sok-ho couldn't outfight it, so he didn't try. Instead, he lured it into the station's reactor room and overloaded the magnetic containment field. The resulting EMP fried every circuit in a 100-meter radius. The drone died. So did half the station's systems. Sok-ho barely made it out before the emergency bulkhead sealed. Hunter 4 deployed. Estimated arrival. 3 hours. By Hunter 5, Sok-ho was running out of places to hide. The station was on lockdown. Security was searching for the terrorist who had damaged the reactor. 3 bounty hunters had recognized him from Old Republic, wanted posters, and tried to collect. They were dead now. Sok-ho was bleeding from a wound in his side, and his left eye was swelling shut from a blow he hadn't dodged fast enough. He found a maintenance closet and sealed himself inside. He had maybe 20 minutes before Hunter 5 found him. His comm buzzed, an incoming message. He almost ignored it, but something made him check the sender. Unknown, priority alpha, personal encryption. He opened it. A familiar face appeared. Silver skin, violet eyes, the Empress. "You're still alive." She sounded genuinely pleased. "I'm impressed, Commander. Hunter 4 was one of my best." "Is this?" Sok-ho coughed blood. "Is this supposed to be encouraging?" "Consider it a progress report." She tilted her head. 5 hunters remain. The next 3 are professionals. Cold, efficient, without ego. They will not underestimate you. Thanks for the warning. Hunter 8 is different. Something flickered in her eyes. He asked to join the hunt personally. He has a grudge against humans. Something about his family dying on a world your species colonized. I've never killed anyone who didn't try to kill me first. I know. I checked. She paused. Hunter 8 won't care. He wants human blood. Any human blood. Sok-ho was quiet for a moment. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to survive, Commander. Her voice was soft. Not because I am merciful, but because I want you to reach the end. I want to see what happens when you face Hunter 10. Who is Hunter 10? She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Me. The message ended. Sok-ho sat in the darkness of the maintenance closet, bleeding, exhausted, hunted. He thought about what she had said. I want to see what happens when you face Hunter 10. She wasn't just playing a game. She was testing him, measuring him, trying to understand something about humanity that she couldn't learn from conquest alone. And the final test would be facing her directly. His comm buzzed again. The station's sensors had detected a ship docking at Base 7. Hunter 5 had arrived. Sok-ho stood up. His wounds screamed in protest. His body begged him to rest. He ignored it. 6 more hunters, then the Empress herself. He checked his weapons. 1 knife, 1 stolen pistol, 12 rounds. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. But he was human, and humans didn't need enough. They just needed a chance. Hunter 5 was a shadow kind, a species that could become invisible, intangible, literally untouchable. It found Sok-ho in the maintenance closet 3 minutes later. And for the first time in 20 years, the shadow kind felt something it had never felt before. Fear. Because the human was smiling, and he had rigged the entire room to explode. The explosion didn't kill the shadow kind, but it hurt it. For the first time in its existence, the creature felt pain. Real, searing, undeniable pain. The specialized EMP charges Sok-ho had planted disrupted its phasing ability, forced it into solid form just as the incendiary grenades detonated. The shadow kind screamed. It was a sound no human had ever heard before. Sok-ho walked through the flames, grabbed the creature by what might have been its throat, and looked into its shifting, terrified eyes. Tell the Empress, he said quietly, that I'm coming for her. Then he snapped its neck. Hunter 6 deployed. Status, active. Estimated arrival, immediate. Seok Ho didn't wait. He moved through the burning section of the station, past screaming civilians and confused security officers, until he reached Docking Bay 3. A ship was waiting, sleek, fast, military grade. Its previous owner, a smuggler named Vex, was lying on the deck with a broken arm and a concussion. Sorry, Seok Ho said, stepping over him. I need this more than you do. He launched the ship just as Hunter 6's vessel entered the system. The chase lasted 3 days. Hunter 6 was a Void Runner, a cybernetically enhanced being that had been modified for space combat. Its ship was faster than Seok Ho's. Its weapons were more powerful. Its reflexes were measured in nanoseconds. But Seok Ho had something the Void Runner didn't: creativity. He led the chase through an asteroid field, using the debris as cover. When the Void Runner followed, Seok Ho killed his engines and went dark, letting his ship drift like just another rock. The Void Runner scanned for heat signatures, for power emissions, for any sign of life. It found nothing, because Seok Ho had sealed himself in the cargo hold. Breathing through an emergency mask, his body temperature lowered to near hypothermic levels by the stolen medical equipment he'd found in the ship's supplies. The Void Runner searched for 6 hours. Then, frustrated, it moved deeper into the asteroid field, looking for where its prey might have fled. It flew directly over Seok Ho's drifting ship. It never saw the mine he had attached to the bottom of its hull. Hunter 7 deployed. Hunter 8 deployed. Status, en route. Hunters 7 and 8 came together. 7 was a mechanical horror, a species that had replaced 90% of their biology with machinery. They felt nothing, feared nothing, wanted nothing except the completion of their mission. 8 was worse. His name was Krath. He was the last survivor of the Morveth species, a race that had been caught in the crossfire of a human-alien war a century ago. His family, his people, his entire civilization had burned, and he blamed humanity. Seok Ho received a message from him on the 3rd day. I don't care about the Empress's game, Krath's voice said. It was ragged, broken, full of old wounds that had never healed. I don't want to capture you. I want to hurt you. I want you to feel what I felt when I watched my children die. Seok Ho listened to the message. Then he set his course for the Morveth graveyard. The Morveth graveyard was a dead system. 3 planets that had been reduced to ash by orbital bombardment. It was a monument to a war that humanity had fought and won. Seok Ho didn't know the details. He hadn't been born yet when the Morveth War happened. He had never killed a Morveth, never even met one until now. But he understood Krath's pain. He understood what it meant to lose everything. He landed on the largest planet's moon and waited. They came within hours. 2 ships, 7's angular destroyer and Krath's cobbled-together warship, scarred and patched from 100 battles. Seok Ho walked out onto the moon's surface, his environmental suit the only thing between him and the vacuum of space. He was unarmed. Krath's ship landed first. The alien emerged, humanoid, but twisted by grief and cybernetic enhancements. His eyes were replaced by burning red sensors. His arms ended in weapons instead of hands. You come to die? Krath's voice crackled through the comm. I came to talk. There is nothing to talk about. Your children, Seok Ho said. What were their names? Krath froze. I don't know much about the Morveth War, Seok Ho continued. I wasn't there, but I know what it means to lose a child. I know what it means to live with that pain every day. You know nothing. My wife's name was Yuna. Seok Ho's voice was steady. She died 3 years ago. Vraxian attack. She was trying to evacuate civilians when they caught the transport. I was supposed to protect her. He paused. I failed. Krath was silent. I've spent every day since then trying to die, Seok Ho said, taking impossible missions, fighting battles I couldn't win, hoping that something would finally kill me so I wouldn't have to feel this anymore. He took a step forward. You want to hurt me? Go ahead. You want to make me suffer? I already suffer. Every single day. He spread his arms. But killing me won't bring them back. It won't make the pain stop. It won't change anything. Krath's weapon arms trembled. His red eyes flickered. What will? His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. Seok-ho's voice cracked. I'm still trying to figure that out. The two of them stood there on the surface of a dead moon, in the shadow of a destroyed civilization, both carrying wounds that would never fully heal. Then Krath lowered his weapons. I will not help you, he said, but I will not hunt you either. He turned back toward his ship. Find your peace, human, if such a thing exists. He flew away. Hunter 7 watched this exchange from its ship. Its mechanical mind processed what it had witnessed, analyzed the tactical situation, calculated its options. Then it launched its attack. The fight lasted 11 minutes. Hunter 7 was fast, efficient, relentless. It didn't tire. It didn't feel pain. It didn't hesitate. But it also didn't understand sacrifice. When Seok-ho triggered the overload on his environmental suit's power core, the machine calculated that no rational being would kill themselves just to eliminate a single enemy. It was wrong. The explosion vaporized them both. Except it didn't. Seok-ho woke up on a medical table, gasping, his body screaming with pain. Above him, sterile lights blazed. A face appeared in his vision. Silver skin, violet eyes. Hello, Commander, Empress Valeth said. Welcome to my ship. Seok-ho tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. He was restrained, not by chains or force fields, but by something deeper, something in his blood. You survived the explosion, Valeth said softly. Your heart stopped for 4 minutes. Your brain was without oxygen for 3. By all measurements, you died. She leaned closer, her violet eyes burning with fascination. And then you came back. Again. She smiled. Now, let's have our conversation. The medical bay of the Imperial flagship was the most advanced in the known galaxy. Machines hummed around Seok-ho, repairing damage that should have been permanent, regrowing tissue that should have been dead, forcing life back into a body that had tried to end itself. He lay on the table, unable to move, watching the Empress through half-closed eyes. Valeth sat in a chair beside him, elegant and patient. She had been there for 3 hours watching the machines work, occasionally asking questions that the medical AI answered in its flat mechanical voice. Subject displays abnormal cellular regeneration, cause unknown. Subject's neural pathways show signs of extreme stress adaptation. Efficiency increased by 340% compared to baseline human. Subject's pain tolerance exceeds all recorded human parameters. Cause unknown. Valeth listened to each report with growing interest. When the AI finished, she turned to Seok-ho. You're not a normal human, are you? Seok-ho coughed. The machines had repaired his lungs, but they still burned. I used to be. What changed? He was quiet for a long moment. The machines beeped. The ship hummed around them. Loss, he finally said. Loss changes everything. Valeth nodded slowly. The Zyraxian Imperium has a saying, strength comes from conquest, power comes from victory, but greatness comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. Pretty words. They are. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars stretched into infinity. I have ruled for 12,000 years, Commander. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched civilizations burn and others emerge from the ashes. I thought I understood strength. She turned back to him. Then I saw you. One human standing against my entire army, and I realized I understood nothing. I was just trying to protect my daughter. Yes, and that is what I cannot understand. She moved closer, her violet eyes intense. In my experience, beings fight for power, for territory, for survival. Selfish motivations, logical motivations. But you, she shook her head, you were willing to die, truly die, for someone else, not for glory, not for honor, just love. The words seemed strange coming from her, like a language she didn't quite speak. My species does not have this, she continued. We reproduce through genetic selection. Our children are raised by the state. There is no attachment, no connection beyond what serves the Imperium. That sounds lonely. It is efficient, but her voice wavered slightly. Seok-ho studied her. For the first time, he saw past the power and the titles. He saw someone old, ancient, someone who had lived for 12,000 years without ever knowing what it meant to truly connect with another being. You wanted to understand humans, he said. That's why you started this hunt. That's why you let Colony Haven go. You wanted to see what we would do, what I would do. Yes. And what have you learned? She was quiet for a long time. I have learned, she said finally, that humans are impossible. You should not exist. Your bodies are fragile. Your lifespans are short. Your technology is primitive. By every logical measure, you should have been conquered 1,000 times over. She sat down on the edge of his medical table. But you survive again and again. You lose everything, and you keep fighting. You face impossible odds, and you find a way. You die, and you come back. She looked at him with something that might have been wonder. I have conquered 847 worlds. I have never met anything like you. The restraints released. Seok Ho sat up slowly, his body aching. He was healed. But the exhaustion remained. Bone deep, soul deep. What happens now? He asked. Is this where you run your experiments? Try to understand what makes humans tick? No, he blinked. No? Valeth stood and walked to a control panel. She pressed a sequence of buttons, and a holographic display appeared. A star map showing a small planet in a neutral system. Your daughter is here, she said. Safe, happy from what my agents report. She believes you are dead. A cargo handler who died in a station accident. Seok Ho's heart clenched. If you hurt her, I will not. Valeth's voice was soft. That is my promise. The promise of an empress who has never broken her word. Then what do you want? She turned to face him, and for the first time, he saw uncertainty in her eyes. I want to understand, she said, not through experiments, not through conquest. I want to learn, the way humans learn. What does that mean? It means I am offering you a choice, Commander Jin Seok Ho. She took a breath. You can leave. Take a ship, return to your daughter, live out the rest of your days in peace. I will ensure no one hunts you. No one threatens your family. You will be safe. That's option 1. What's option 2? She hesitated. For 12,000 years, she had never hesitated. Stay, she said. Teach me. Help me understand what it means to be human. What it means to love, to sacrifice, to fight for something greater than yourself. Seok Ho stared at her. You're asking me to, what? Be your advisor? Your pet human? I am asking you to be my teacher. Her voice was quiet. I have conquered the galaxy, but I have never understood it. I have ruled for 12 millennia, but I have never truly lived. I want to know what I have been missing. And in exchange, I will change. She met his eyes. The Zyraxian Imperium will change. No more conquest for its own sake. No more burning worlds that resist. I will build something different. Something better. She paused. But I cannot do it alone. I need someone to show me the way. Seok Ho was silent for a long time. He thought about his daughter. Safe, happy, believing he was dead. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe she was better off without a father who was more ghost than man. He thought about the soldiers he had killed. 300 on Colony Haven. Hunters 1 through 9. All dead because of him. All dead because he refused to stop fighting. He thought about Krath, the last Morveth, flying away from a battle he could have won because a human showed him something he didn't expect. And he thought about the Empress, 12,000 years old, ruler of 10,000 worlds, more powerful than anything he could imagine, and absolutely, completely alone. If I do this, he said slowly, I have conditions. Name them. My daughter stays safe, untouched, protected. No matter what happens to me, done. The colony, Haven, you leave it alone, forever, done. And you don't just learn from me, you listen, really listen, even when what I say challenges everything you believe. Valeth smiled. It was a real smile this time, uncertain, hopeful, almost human. That, she said, is exactly what I'm hoping for. 1 year later, the throne room of the Imperial flagship was filled with generals, advisors, and representatives from 100 subject worlds. They had come to witness something unprecedented, the Empress's new declaration. Valeth stood before them, regal and powerful as always. But something had changed. The cold distance in her eyes had softened. The absolute certainty in her voice had been replaced by something more thoughtful. For 12,000 years, she announced, the Zyraxian Imperium has expanded through conquest. We have measured our greatness by the worlds we have taken, the species we have subjugated, the resistance we have crushed. The room was silent. Today that changes. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I have learned something this past year, something I did not expect. I have learned that true strength is not measured in conquest. It is measured in what you are willing to sacrifice for others. In the connections you build, in the love you give. She paused. I have learned this from a human. Every eye in the room turned to the figure standing beside the throne. A human man with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore simple clothes. No uniform, no insignia. He didn't need them. Everyone knew who he was. The impossible human. The one who fought alone. The man who had faced the Empress's army and lived. Beginning today, Valeth continued, the Imperium will no longer conquer. We will cooperate, build alliances, create partnerships. She smiled slightly. We will try something new. The room erupted in chaos. Generals protested, advisors shouted, representatives from subject worlds stared in disbelief. But Valeth raised her hand, and silence fell. This is not a debate, she said. This is my decree. And any who oppose it, she glanced at Seokho, it will have to go through him first. Later, when the throne room was empty, Seokho stood by the window and watched the stars. Valeth joined him. They think I've gone mad, she said. Probably. They think you've corrupted me. Have I? She considered. You have changed me. Is that corruption? Depends on the change. She was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. He turned to look at her. For what? For teaching me what I was missing, for showing me that there is more to existence than power and conquest. She paused. For being impossible. Seokho smiled. It was the first real smile he had given in years. That's what humans do, Your Majesty. I know, she smiled back. That's why I needed you. Far away on a small planet in a neutral system, a young woman looked up at the stars. She had received a message that morning. Anonymous, untraceable, containing only a few words. I'm alive. I'm proud of you. I love you. Always. Adad? She didn't know where he was. She didn't know what he was doing. But somehow she knew he was okay. And she knew with absolute certainty that wherever he was still fighting. The end.